In the winter of 1961, Edward Lorenz made a discovery that would fundamentally alter our understanding of the universe. A meteorologist at MIT, Lorenz was running weather simulations on his primitive computer when he decided to take a shortcut. Instead of entering the precise value from a previous calculation, 0.506127, he rounded it to 0.506. A tiny difference, less than 1 part in 1,000. When he returned from getting coffee, Lorenz found something astonishing. This minuscule rounding error had completely transformed his simulated weather patterns. What should have been nearly identical forecasts had diverged wildly. That December morning, as snow fell outside his Cambridge office window, Lorenz discovered what we now call sensitive dependence on initial conditions, the founding principle of chaos theory. The flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil, Lorenz would later famously suggest, might set off a tornado in Texas. The butterfly effect was born, forever changing how we understand complex systems. But here is where our story takes its most surprising turn. Because chaos, that apparent randomness and unpredictability that seems to undermine our desire for order, actually creates order. This counterintuitive truth lies at the heart of our universe, from the formation of galaxies to the beating of your heart. To understand this paradox, we must first clarify what scientists mean by chaos. In scientific terms, chaos does not mean complete randomness. Rather, it describes deterministic systems whose outcomes are exquisitely sensitive to initial conditions. Though these systems follow precise mathematical rules, their long-term behavior appears random because we can never measure their starting states with infinite precision. Consider what happened when physicist Mitchell Feigenbaum sequestered himself at Los Alamos National Laboratory in the 1970s. Obsessed with a simple mathematical equation that models population growth, Feigenbaum discovered something remarkable. As he increased a parameter in this equation, the system's behavior would split from one stable state to 2, then 4, then 8, doubling repeatedly until descending into apparent chaos. But within this chaos, Feigenbaum found a precise mathematical constant, 4.6692016009. This number, now called the Feigenbaum constant, appears universally in systems transitioning from order to chaos. It is a fingerprint of order within disorder. Feigenbaum's discovery revealed something profound: the route to chaos is not random but follows precise mathematical rules. The transition between order and chaos contains its own hidden order. This principle extends far beyond mathematics. In 1993, physicist Albert Laszlo Barabasi began investigating networks ranging from the World Wide Web to cellular metabolism. He discovered that these vastly different systems self-organize into what mathematicians call scale-free networks. In these networks, most nodes have few connections, but a few hubs have enormous numbers of connections. This structure emerges spontaneously, through a process Barabasi called preferential attachment, where well-connected nodes naturally attract more connections. The Internet was not designed with this structure, it emerged through millions of individual decisions. Yet this chaotic growth creates an ordered pattern that makes the network remarkably resilient to random failures. If you randomly remove nodes from a scale-free network, the overall structure remains intact. Order from chaos. Even the human heartbeat, that seemingly regular rhythm of life, contains chaotic variability. In the 1980s, physicist Ari Goldberger of Harvard Medical School analyzed thousands of electrocardiograms and made a startling discovery. Healthy hearts display subtle chaos-like irregularities, while diseased hearts often beat with metronomic regularity. The chaotic variability in heart rhythms allows our cardiovascular system to adapt quickly to changing demands. Remove this chaos, and the heart becomes dangerously rigid. A healthy heart is not a metronome, Goldberger noted in his 2002 paper in the journal Chaos. The healthy heartbeat is slightly irregular and surprisingly predictable mathematically despite its irregularity. This pattern repeats throughout biology. In 2007, neuroscientist Wolf Singer at the Max Planck Institute found that the brain's electrical activity hovers at the edge of chaos, a sweet spot between rigid order and complete randomness. This critical state maximizes the brain's information processing capacity, allowing neurons to communicate efficiently while remaining flexible enough to reconfigure in response to new information. The creative power of chaos extends to the grandest scales imaginable. For decades, cosmologists were puzzled by a fundamental question: how did our smoothly expanding early universe develop the complex structures, galaxies, stars, planets, that we see today? The answer came in 1982 when physicists Stephen Hawking and Alan Guth independently proposed that tiny quantum fluctuations, inherently chaotic and unpredictable events at the subatomic level, were amplified by cosmic inflation in the universe's first fraction of a second. These microscopic irregularities became the seeds from which all cosmic structure grew. The irregularities in the early universe are the result of quantum fluctuations, Hawking explained in his 1988 bestseller, A Brief History of Time. Without these chaotic quantum jitters, the universe would have remained a featureless gas, incapable of forming stars, planets, or life. Even the stability of our solar system emerges from chaos. In 1989, astronomer Jacques Lasker of the Paris Observatory used computer simulations to demonstrate that the orbits of planets in our solar system are chaotic over long timescales. Small gravitational perturbations compound over millions of years, making precise long-term predictions impossible. Yet this same orbital chaos played a crucial role in stabilizing our planetary system. During the solar system's formation 4.6 billion years ago, chaotic gravitational interactions ejected most planetesimals and rogue bodies, clearing space around the surviving planets. The chaos eventually settled into the relatively stable configuration we see today, not because of some cosmic design but through a natural selection process driven by chaotic dynamics. The most dramatic example of order from chaos may be life itself. In 1953, chemists Stanley Miller and Harold Urey conducted their famous experiment at the University of Chicago, showing that electrical discharges simulating lightning in a mixture of simple gases could produce amino acids, the building blocks of proteins. This chaotic energy input created molecular order. But how did these simple organic compounds organize into the first self-replicating systems? In 1995, biochemist Stuart Kauffman proposed that complex chemical networks naturally develop autocatalytic properties, where the products of reactions catalyze other reactions in the network. These networks can spontaneously cross a threshold of complexity and begin to display lifelike properties. Life exists at the edge of chaos, Kauffman wrote in his book At Home in the Universe. Life is a natural property of complex chemical systems, when the number and diversity of different molecular species exceeds a certain threshold. Even evolution itself, that great organizer of biological complexity, requires chaos to function. Random genetic mutations provide the raw material upon which natural selection acts. Without this genetic noise, evolution would stall, unable to explore new possibilities or adapt to changing environments. In 2009, evolutionary biologist Richard Lenski of Michigan State University provided dramatic evidence of this principle. His long-term experimental evolution project, which began in 1988, has tracked over 73,000 generations of E. coli bacteria. Lenski documented how random mutations, amplified by natural selection, allowed some bacterial populations to develop entirely new metabolic capabilities, including the ability to consume citrate in the presence of oxygen, something E. coli normally cannot do. This innovation did not appear gradually but emerged suddenly after 31,500 generations. The chaotic process of mutation had created a new biological order. The principle extends to the most remarkable feature of life, the human brain. Our consciousness, that supreme expression of order and integration, emerges from the collective activity of 86 billion neurons forming quadrillions of connections. Each neuron operates with elements of randomness in when it fires, yet from this noisy foundation arises the most ordered and complex structure known in the universe. In 2019, neuroscientist Danielle Bassett at the University of Pennsylvania discovered that brain networks constantly reconfigure themselves, balancing between order and disorder. Using functional MRI to observe brain activity during learning tasks, Bassett found that optimal learning occurs when neural networks maintain the right degree of chaotic flexibility, rigid enough to maintain information but flexible enough to reconfigure as needed. The brain exists in this dynamic regime between order and disorder, Bassett explained. Too much order, and it cannot adapt; too much disorder, and it cannot maintain stable patterns of activity. This creative tension between chaos and order shapes our physical world as well. In 2016, physicist Nigel Goldenfeld at the University of Illinois demonstrated that turbulent fluid flow, the chaotic movement of liquids or gases that has confounded physicists for centuries, contains hidden mathematical patterns. These patterns, called coherent structures, emerge spontaneously and help organize the flow into recognizable features like vortices. Turbulence represents perhaps the quintessential example of deterministic chaos, fluid movements governed by precise physical laws, the Navier-Stokes equations, yet displaying behavior so complex that complete prediction remains impossible. Nevertheless, this chaotic fluid motion self-organizes into structured patterns that help transfer energy and momentum throughout the system. We can observe this principle by watching a river flow around rocks. The turbulent eddies that form are not random but organized structures emerging from chaotic interactions between water molecules. These vortices efficiently dissipate energy and prevent the river from backing up behind obstacles. Even climate systems display this paradoxical relationship between chaos and order. Earth's climate is intrinsically chaotic, as Lorenz discovered in 1961. Yet within this chaos emerge organized patterns like the El Niño Southern Oscillation, the Atlantic multi-decadal oscillation, and the jet streams, coherent structures that bring predictability to regional weather despite the system's underlying chaotic nature. In 2004, climatologist Isaac Held of NOAA's Geophysical Fluid Dynamics Laboratory demonstrated how these ordered climate patterns emerge from chaotic atmospheric and oceanic circulation through a process called self-organization. The chaotic mixing of air and water, driven by temperature differences in Earth's rotation, spontaneously generates large-scale current systems that transport heat from equator to poles. The science of self-organization has revealed similar patterns across disciplines. In 1995, physicists Burbach, Chao-Tang, and Kurt Wiesenfeld discovered self-organized criticality while studying sand piles. They found that when sand is gradually added to a pile, small avalanches occur unpredictably, but the overall statistical pattern of avalanches follows precise mathematical laws. The sand pile naturally maintains itself at a critical state, the boundary between stability and collapse. This principle extends to forest fires, earthquakes, financial markets, and extinction events in Earth's history. In each case, chaotic individual events organize into predictable statistical patterns. The size distribution of earthquakes, for instance, follows a precise mathematical relationship called the Gutenberg-Richter law, despite the unpredictability of any individual quake. Perhaps most remarkably, chaos creates the very fabric of nature's beauty. In 1975, mathematician Benoit Mandelbrot introduced the concept of fractals, geometric structures with patterns that repeat at different scales. The Mandelbrot set, a mathematical object generated by a simple iterative equation, produces infinite complexity and hauntingly beautiful structures from chaos. Fractals appear throughout nature, in the branching of trees, the shape of coastlines, the structure of lungs, and the network of blood vessels in your body. Each represents order emerging from underlying chaotic processes. A tree's growth responds to countless unpredictable variables, light availability, wind patterns, soil conditions, yet produces a recognizable fractal structure optimized for gathering sunlight and withstanding environmental stresses. In 1996, biologist Brian Goodwin demonstrated that the spiral arrangement of leaves around a plant stem, known as phyllotaxis, frequently follows the Fibonacci sequence, a mathematical pattern where each number is the sum of the two preceding ones, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. This arrangement maximizes each leaf's exposure to sunlight. The plant does not solve this mathematical optimization problem. The pattern emerges through local chaotic interactions as the plant grows. Even human creativity thrives at the boundary between chaos and order. In 2012, neuroscientist Roger Beatty at Harvard University used functional MRI to study brain activity during creative thinking. He discovered that creative insights emerge when the brain's default mode network, associated with spontaneous, chaotic thought, interacts dynamically with the executive control network, responsible for focused, ordered thinking. The most creative individuals, Beatty found, can rapidly switch between these networks or activate them simultaneously. Their brains balance between the chaos of free association and the order of critical evaluation. This principle extends beyond individual creativity to cultural evolution. In 2015, complexity scientist Stuart Kauffman demonstrated mathematically that human cultural systems, like biological systems, thrive at the edge of chaos, where there is enough stability to preserve knowledge but enough volatility to generate innovations. Societies that become too ordered grow rigid and fail to adapt, those that become too chaotic dissolve into disorder. The most successful cultures maintain a creative tension between tradition and revolution, between preserving existing structures and allowing new ones to emerge. The relationship between chaos and order reveals a profound truth about our universe. Complexity emerges not through top-down design but through bottom-up self-organization. Complex systems from galaxies to ecosystems to civilizations find their own order through the interplay of simple rules and chaotic interactions. As physicist Murray Gell-Mann, who discovered quarks, observed in his 1994 book The Quark and the Jaguar, at each level of complexity, entirely new properties appear. The whole becomes not merely more than but very different from the sum of its parts. This principle challenges our intuitive understanding of cause and effect. We tend to think linearly that complex order requires complex causes or intelligent design. But science reveals that astonishing complexity can emerge from simple rules operating in chaotic conditions. When British chemist Alan Turing, better known for breaking Nazi codes and pioneering computer science, turned his attention to biology in 1952, he discovered that a system with just two chemicals that react and diffuse can spontaneously generate complex patterns. These Turing patterns explain how leopards get their spots, how zebras get their stripes, and how the symmetrical structure of a snowflake emerges from the chaotic motion of water molecules. In each case, the pattern is not imposed from outside but emerges through the system's intrinsic dynamics. No single molecule knows it is creating a snowflake. The hexagonal structure emerges from countless local interactions following simple physical laws. This perspective transforms how we understand organization in our universe. Order is not always imposed against chaos, it often emerges because of chaos. The two are not opponents but partners in an elaborate dance that generates complexity at every scale. The implications extend beyond science into philosophy. For centuries, thinkers have debated whether the universe's apparent design requires a designer. The science of chaos and emergence offers a third possibility: complex order can self-organize without either random chance or conscious design. As physicist Paul Davies writes in The Cosmic Blueprint, the universe is not a random collection of particles nor is it designed in detail by a supernatural being. Rather, it organizes itself using the inherent creativity of nonlinear, far from equilibrium systems. Perhaps most profoundly, this understanding reframes our place in the cosmos. We are not accidents in a random universe, nor are we the result of detailed supernatural design. Rather, we represent an emergent property of a universe that naturally generates complexity through the creative interplay of chaos and order. Your consciousness, that remarkable capacity for self-awareness reading these words right now, emerges from billions of neurons firing in patterns that balance at the edge of chaos. Your body's organization emerges from genetic instructions shaped by the creative tension between random mutation and natural selection. The civilization that surrounds you emerges from countless individual decisions interacting through social and economic networks that no one designed. The next time you observe a flock of birds wheeling through the sky in perfect coordination, remember, no bird leads the flock. The beautiful, ordered pattern emerges from simple rules followed by each bird, interacting through chaotic local adjustments. No central plan, yet perfect organization. The same principle applies when you watch waves breaking on a shore, each one unique yet following recognizable patterns, or when you observe clouds forming and dissipating in summer skies. Each represents order emerging from chaos through the operation of simple physical laws. Edward Lorenz's discovery in 1961 did not reveal a universe of hopeless unpredictability. Instead, it unveiled a deeper truth: the universe generates its most beautiful and complex structures precisely because of its inherent chaos. Chaos does not oppose order, it creates it. This understanding transforms how we see everything from the formation of galaxies to the function of ecosystems to the operation of our own minds. We inhabit a universe where order and chaos are not enemies but essential partners in an endless creative dance, a universe that builds complexity not despite unpredictability but because of it. Perhaps this is the most shocking truth of all: the ordered complexity we see around us and within us exists not in spite of chaos, but because of it. The butterfly's wings and the tornado are not separate phenomena but aspects of the same creative process, a universe continually organizing itself into new forms of order through the transformative power of chaos.